Good people, what is going on? Another episode of the All Go Podcast. I'm your host, Desmond. Thank you for tuning in. I let you down. I told you I was going to do a video every day in this month. I missed yesterday. A lot was going on in work. I had a late call and then went to a basketball game with my daughter, so I missed it. My apologies. But in response, I'm going to do two videos today. So this is one. I'm going to do one a little bit later, and not quite sure on the topic just yet, but what I want to talk about is I have mentioned a couple times just different franchises and how it is very, very difficult to overcome poor ownership and poor front office. And the Chicago Bears are painting a very clear picture of that right now. So first, there was, as everyone knows, Ben Johnson is a very hot candidate when it comes to potential head coaching openings. The Lions are still playing, so he can't interview until his season is over, if I'm understanding that rule correctly. And he's focused on that. But everyone has been talking about Ben Johnson. You know, the Detroit offense has looked really good this year, but also last year as well. And he has been a hot name. There has been a report that Ryan Poles, who is the current GM of the Chicago Bears, is discouraging or trying to point the front office in a different route as far as candidates, because he feels that if Ben Johnson came in and was hired as the head coach, that he would try to get Ryan Poles fired or have that as a stipulation in his contract. Now, I do understand self-preservation. I get that. But this report is just flat out embarrassing. And I think it highlights my exact point. Like, you cannot get over poor ownership. The goal for the franchise should be to get the best candidate for the job. And that should be it. We want to get the best candidate. Now, if he has a stipulation in his contract that Ryan Poles has to be fired, that's something different. But if it's just like, I don't really get along with Ryan Poles that much, okay, great. But if you come in and you are the type of coach that we think you are, and you're gonna be successful here, we're everyone benefits from that. Everyone, the GM, the team president, which is Kevin Warren, which a whole nother story. So everyone benefits from that happening. And the fact that you're willing to sacrifice your, because the thing is, let's say they hire someone else and he does poorly, you're all getting fired anyway. So what does it truly matter, assuming that Ben Johnson is not asking for that type of stipulation? It just shows dysfunction. I think it highlights dysfunction that and that's what the Chicago Bears are. They are dysfunctional. They've got a pretty darn good roster, and it is what it is. There's just franchises that have it, and you can't overcome it. The other thing with the Chicago Bears, there is a list of 13 candidates that they want to interview for their head coaching position. Now, doing your due diligence, that is what you should be doing. But due diligence is not 13 interviews for the head coaching job. You should have probably a top two, top three at best. And the other should be like phone calls, Zoom calls types of number one, 13 is way too many. That's just way too many. So that's the first problem. The second problem is you need to be focused in your search. Like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for an offensive head coach? Are you looking for a defensive head coach? Are you looking for a CEO head coach? Are you open to all of those? And if so, like, okay, cool. We just want to grab the best candidate. But what you also need to know is, if you decide to hire an offensive head coach, you need to ask him in that interview, hey, who are you thinking as your DC? Same thing, vice versa. If you hire a defensive minded head coach like Aaron Glenn, who's going to be your offensive coordinator? Because that's important. For the CEO candidate, same thing. Who's going to be your offense and defensive coordinators if you're not going to be the one calling the plays? Because that's important. And 13 is nuts. It should be, listen, here's our top two candidates. We're going to go interview those guys. We're going to, make some offers, figure out where exactly we stand. Think about this potential scenario that I think is reasonable when you have 13 interviews that you want to conduct. Let's say, excuse me, Lions win the Super Bowl, which that is going to happen. So Lions win the Super Bowl. Week later, Ben Johnson interviews with the Bears for the job there. Let's say I don't have dates and stuff in front of me. Let's say it's February 15th. Ben Johnson interviews for the Bears job, and he's the first interview. Now they're going through and they're going to interview 12 other candidates, and it takes 2 weeks. What if on February 20th, Ben Johnson goes and interviews for the Vegas Raiders, and on the 21st they offer him the job and full control, offer him everything he wants and a little bit more just as a kicker because he's the number one candidate. Well, for the Bears, you're not even done with all of your interviews. So what are you going to do? Because and that's the problem with interviewing so many guys. Like, that is ridiculous. It's crazy. And I think what you are, number one, I think what you do is you are showing your dysfunction for all to see. And number two, you've got the serious possibility of losing out on your number one candidate because you're going through the motions with all these other guys. Like, I don't even know who Drew Petzing is. He's apparently the OC for the Cardinals. Do you want Drew Petzing as your head coach? He might be a great guy and all that good stuff, but that's literally the first time I heard about his name was seeing that list. So like, this is a very serious thing. This is a CEO ish of a $8 billion company is what it is. That's what each NFL team is. Some are more, some are a little less, but in general, it's about that. So you've got to be serious about this. You've got to be focused about it. You've got to run this like a real operation, not like dysfunctional. I don't even know what to compare it to, but those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Is this nuts? Should they be going through 13 candidates to find their head coach, or do you agree with me and think that the Bears are nuts? Let me know. Would appreciate it. And if you're here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. That's it for me. Peace.